Yeah, Stella, baby. Finna get right. Here we go. Yeah, listen. I ain't really tryna hold too much pride. Feeling like Michael, how I beat those odds, yeah. She's a real winner, and I can't deny she fine as wine with time. I don't really care for the clout nor fame, but you better make sure you know my name, yeah. This is real life, and it ain't no game. When you see me in the skyline, knock me down, come back up. Watch your work, watch your strut now. I don't care what they say, I'ma still have my way. I'm alright, that's for sure. I know I can endure. Back and forth, on and on. Yes, I'm on quite a run, yeah.
Welcome to Rooted Within Her, your go-to podcast. We are founded off of Colossians 2:7, where we are rooted in Christ, strengthening our faith, and overflowing with thankfulness. I am Brittany Bossup, your host, a devoted mom, veteran, mental health therapist, author, international keynote speaker, and your wealth and wellness coach. We are going to be talking about mental health, storytelling, relationships, and making sure you feel empowered with a positive mindset each and every day. Make sure you follow us on all social media platforms. That's at Rooted Within Her. And go to our website, rootedwithinher.com, where you can get access to all of our resources to help you if you are a corporation looking to restructure your employee wellness, or if you are a divorced mom and you are looking for those resources to help you heal and rebuild. This is your go-to podcast. Again, that is rootedwithinher.com. Sit back and enjoy. Welcome to Rooted Within Her. Today we have an amazing guest, and without further ado, I'm going to make sure I bring her to the stage. Hi, Fanny. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime. Well, I'm so excited that you are taking the time to be in Rooted Within Her. As you know, I am an LPC, and I love my LCSWs because we just get each other. We can share the stories. It reminds me when I was in education, it was like teachers get teachers because we can tell about all the stuff the kids did, and people who are not in education are like, what? So tell us about you. Who is Fanny? What do you do?
Yeah, so I really just started my career as a trauma therapist. So I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I've been in the field for like over 15 years now. And I have just been working with women of color for most of my career, individually, within families. And I started a private practice a few years back called Restorative Space. And there I focus on doing trauma work with particularly firstborn daughters. So I work in the intersection of birth order and trauma and anxiety and depression. And so I noticed a pattern happening in my practice. I noticed that there were women coming to see me to do a lot of work on themselves, oftentimes as a result of a breakup, either right after a breakup, and they were kind of going through that kind of breakup grief or loss, but also some women who had just been single for a very long time and they felt that there was something really wrong or that they were feeling stuck. And we did a lot of really wonderful work together. But I also felt like, as someone who has experienced something similar, right, that breakup grief, who has, was single for a very, very long time, didn't really have partnership until later in my life. I think I knew that there were ways that I wanted to support them that felt limited by the medical model that I was using to treat, right? Because as a mental health practitioner, you diagnose someone, you're giving someone a treatment modality that is aligned with that diagnosis, right? Just like, a medical doctor would, right? But I also knew just personally, like, women who are single or are struggling in these ways, like, we need to be in community. And historically, women of color have always thrived in community. And so I wanted to have opportunities for us to get together, to be able to expand in the ways that I know have been really helpful for me in that journey, and to finding the community that was right for me and that was supportive of me today, and really allows me to build the kind of family that I really wanted. And so I decided to really look into coaching and seeing how, oh, like I don't have to be limited in these ways, and we can go on trips, and we can use travel as a healing tool, and I can still educate women on systems and all of the things that I know from my background, but really making it more of a holistic experience. So using that education, but also letting the world guide a lot of our growth. And so that was the seed for Her Soul Supply, where I help single women of color, and helping them decenter romance from their happiness.
Oh my goodness. This is so amazing because, as a mental health professional, you're right. We have to give someone a diagnosis and follow along with that. And that might not necessarily fit. It could literally be a lot of things assessing back to the roots of childhood, and a lot of times not dealing with those traumas, which we don't even realize they're traumas because they become the norm. And it's so funny you said that with birth order, because I was literally working with a client this past week, and it's like, what is going on when it comes to relationships? And as we looked at it, we analyzed that it was the birth order. That is why it was like that. Because as the oldest, you're the one. Are you also the oldest in your family?
I'm actually an only child, which
Oh,
kind of feeds into all of them, but
yes.
identifies the most with the firstborn.
Right, that's right. And so being the oldest, so I am as well the oldest. And so it's like it's certain things that you grow up and you just do. And then you get in these relationships and you just do because you're not used to anyone saying, okay, what about your feelings, or what about this, or what about that? And so one day you're like, wait a minute, is this right? Should I be, or I don't feel like I'm getting what I'm putting in, and that's why so many women, once they have that breakup, they come to you because now they feel like their whole world has come crashing down, because it's like, okay, what do I do next? Is it something wrong with me? Maybe because of the things that were said to me. And that's what I work with a lot of my clients and helping them know, just because something was said to you, it doesn't make it true. But it's hard sometimes, even for myself, not to take it personal, because you're like, well, you said it. Why would you say that? And you have to realize that it's not even about you. It's not about us, but we have to do the work on us. And that is the key. That I'm so glad that you're doing that work, because to be in trauma is a lot, but people have to know that they want help in order to really get it. And so with working with people, what does that look like when people sign up to join your community? Tell us, like, what does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. And so in Her Soul Supply, I do a lot of one-on-one coaching. I have my live master class that I have every month, Single, Empowered, and Free, where we do a deep dive on all of these systems that impact how we feel about being single women of a certain age. And we share our stories, we, engage in community. We had our first retreat last year in Oaxaca, where we all gathered, and just really engaged in all these different types of wellness activities every day, had sister circles, and just really integrate in community, and really, be in spaces where we're learning from the people that are inspiring us. And so that's what a lot of the work looks like in Her Soul Supply. And you said something that, excuse me, you said something that was really, poignant in a lot of the work that I do, just as a clinician, but also as a coach, in thinking about this idea that, uh, we go through things, right? Sometimes things that happen to us or around us that have a big impact on us, but that it's really up to us to do something about that, right? And I think that a through line in all of the work that I do is emphasizing that there's a big difference between reasons and excuses,
Mm.
right? And I feel like reasons are very helpful, right? Reasons give us the information we need to understand why something is happening, right? Whether it's a diagnosis, whether it's understanding that someone's behavior has actually nothing to do with you, but about what's going on for them, or, something that's giving us a big picture of like, this is the sequence of things and this is why it's happening, right? That is such helpful information, right? But oftentimes, when people don't want to take those reasons and actually use them to create a solution for themselves, then they become excuses,
That's right.
right? Then it kind of puts people in this place of learned helplessness, right? Where they're like, well, because of my, X diagnosis, this is why I'm like this, right? And it's like, yes, that might be a reason why you might function a certain way or see things a certain way, right? That doesn't necessarily mean you get to continue um, not having to address the issue, right?
Exactly.
Because you're still an adult that impacts people and is impacted by your behavior, right? And so, what are going to be the tools that are going to help you get to where you need to go, or help you achieve those things, or help you have healthier relationships with people because they may have lost trust because you don't do anything about the situation, right? And so, I think I lead all of my work in that way where it's like, yeah, it sucks that you had a cheating ex partner. It
Mhm.
sucks that you grew up in an environment that didn't feel safe,
That's
right? And it wasn't fair, right? And also, are we going to let those things continue to drive the car through the tunnel of our lives? And are we going
yes.
to let that continue to decide our fate? Or are we going to use that as a knowledge base to understand what it is that we do want and
Mhm.
what are going to be the resources that we have or don't have or that we need to attain in order to get the things that we want?
Yes. And you made some really, really great points. And I think that's the piece that we don't acknowledge enough for people is okay, these reasons, they're valid. Because you hear a lot of people just say, oh, just, get over it. Oh, or that's an excuse. You need to keep pushing forward. And it's not an excuse because it really happened. That's what leaves people's mind in a whirlwind because it's like, okay, I know this happened to me. Or some people might feel like, in the example you gave with the cheating spouse, okay, they might feel like everybody they've ever dated cheated on them. So it's like, okay, there has to be something wrong with me. Or if I would have done a little bit more, I hear that all the time. If I would have done a little bit more, and we realize that goes back to your childhood, depending on your birth order. If you're the oldest, you're always giving, giving, giving. And so you're thinking, or especially if you grew up in an abusive household, that's another thing, right? Then you feel like you need to give more. Or if you have an abusive relationship, what can I do more of? And really, it's not about you doing anything more. It's about how they see themselves and what's the really big picture at hand. So, as a trauma therapist for yourself, how do you feel like your childhood kind of played a role into you being the woman that you are today? Like, did you always envision yourself being a trauma, therapist, or was it something that you went through in your childhood that you were like, okay, I know I'm destined to help people, maybe just not how, but as you've gone along the journey, because like I tell people, everyone doesn't know their purpose. You're not like 10 and I know I'm going to be this, So we all have said things and then no, that is not what God had in store for us. But tell us a little bit about that for yourself.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I am the daughter of immigrants. I am an immigrant myself. I am Peruvian. So the Black Peruvians exist, y'all. We're a very small portion of the population, but we do exist. We mostly are in Lima, Peru, in the capital, and so that's where my family is from. We're African descendants of that have settled in Peru. And so, I came to the US a very small child with my mom, and, we were very separated from our extended family, and we really had to build a life for ourselves. Um, and, I grew up with just a lot of the struggles that people have around, making sure that your bills are paid and the lights stay on, and what it means to seek community when you don't have family around. And so, I think I spent a lot of my childhood learning how to kind of code switch and really know how to get my needs met based on how comfortable I made other people. Because I didn't always fit in, right? I had, I lived in a very diverse kind of city suburb outside of New York City. And, everybody was there. There were Latin families, there were Black families, like everybody was there. Although I've always felt like I was in the margins of all of those communities, right? Because, young Black kids, they don't necessarily think about the diaspora, right? So they're
Right.
like, why do you speak Spanish? You're not Black, or like you have a lot of Latinos who like don't understand the transatlantic slave trade, right? And so they're
Right.
like, what do you mean you're Latino? And like, you're not really like, and so I think I've grown to kind of see like my body as like an apology, like something I had to like give these caveats for. I
Right.
couldn't just be in my identity that is understood.
Yeah.
And so I think that was the lens in which I've really grown up in. Um, and having experienced a parent with illness, right? My mother had a lot of mental illness, and so I was pretty parentified very young. I had to help take care of her. My father worked; he had to get another job after that because, on top of that, because she couldn't work, And so I think we were just always this team that had to make sure that everyone was okay and everyone had their basic needs met. And so I think that I learned very early on those skills of connecting with people, being able to see people's needs, and really bending over backwards to make sure things are okay. And I think that there's kind of two sides to that, right? There's the side of me that's a very intuitive person, right? That built that skill very early on. However, it also made me a bit of a people pleaser and
Yeah.
perfectionist, and someone that really had to portray themselves in order to feel like that was how you got what you needed, right?
Mhm.
And so I spent a lot of my early adulthood kind of doing that, like chasing these identities that weren't really mine, but what I thought was like good or that I needed. Um, and that
Just
had
to fit in,
yeah,
right?
like it just had a huge number on my self-esteem. And of course, that played out in my friendships, in my romantic relationships,
Mhm.
right? And only until I started to really do that own work of going
Ooh,
to therapy,
crying.
of really being able to define my own identity outside of expectations of other people, did I actually start to feel a genuine sense of belonging, um, and being able to actually find who my people really are.
Yes, yes. And those are really, really great points because so many times it's like once something happens, an event happens in our life, then we're forced to peel back the layers of the onion and deal with the inner core. And then we realize, wait a minute, I've been people pleasing. I've been doing all of these things for everybody else. What do I even like? And so I hear so many people saying, even at the age of 30 and 40, like, shouldn't I know these things? Not necessarily, because you've always lived in the shadow of pleasing other people, doing for everyone else, or doing what you thought was acceptable. Then you don't know yourself in any form or fashion. It's okay. It doesn't matter what age, as long as you're willing to do the work. So, as we come to a close, what would you say is a favorite quote or scripture that you have?
Yes. So I don't know who said this quote, but I do feel like it's something that I live by, which is that the world is always bigger than you think it is,
Mm,
right? We don't have to settle for kind of what was laid out for us or what people expect of us, but that if we're open to having just an open mind and a recognition that we are life term learners, right? That we're always should be out here seeking understanding, that our the quality of our lives will only improve.
that's right. Oh man, I love that. And you have to be a constant learner. That's why I tell people like reading books is phenomenal. And that's my go-to. And so many people say, I don't have time to read. Oh, we make time for the things that we want to make time for. And so once I remember, I'll never forget reading this article. And they were like CEOs to read like 40 to 50 books a year. And I'm like, how do they have time for that? And then I was like, okay, I need to change my mindset. Literally, if I can get through a chapter in a week or I read a page or two a day, at least I'm getting further than I was the day before. And so it's really all about our mindset and who we surround ourselves. Why, right? Because if I have been surrounded with people who are like, yeah, that's stupid. Who can read that? But if you're around people like, you can do it, you can do it. Yeah, that person might have more time, But if we're trying to get to a different level, a different status in life, we have to be willing to push ourselves outside of our comfort zone. So tell our listeners, how can they get connected with you and just be a part of your amazing community?
Yeah, thank you. So people can follow me on Instagram. I'm on there a lot under Her Soul Supply. You can also join my newsletter at hersoulsupply.com, where I send weekly tips and thoughts around your singlehood journey. And you can join me for my live masterclass that I conduct live every month. It's not recorded. And you can gather with other single women, in the same place as you, that are ready to learn and to build, the kind of life that makes them feel free and centered in their values.
Oh my goodness, that's so amazing. Well, thank you so much, listeners. Make sure you get connected because this is where you want to be. You cannot do life alone, you have to do it in community. So make sure you get connected. Thank you so much, Fanny, for being a part of our amazing show, Rooted Within Her. And we look forward to having you again soon.
Yes, my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Rooted Within Her, your number one go-to podcast. If you heard something today that resonated with you, make sure you screenshot, tag us on all social media platforms, tell us what your thoughts were, what were your takeaways, and make sure you go to rootedwithinher.com so you can access all of our resources, join our challenges, find out about life coachings, and don't forget about our amazing, phenomenal retreats. So make sure you go to rootedwithinher.com. And again, thank you for listening. And I want you to have a super phenomenal day because you are God's masterpiece.
Say I must still have my way.